What's good, everybody? Welcome to another exciting episode of Full Circle. I'm your host, as always, Harmon Jr. Please feel free to find me at Harmon Jr. on all your favorite social media. What's up, everybody? You know what? Second week of the year. We're ripping and rolling. We're staying strong. We're still here. RIP to the great Betty White, because I had tickets to go see her 100th birthday celebration with my friend, and now apparently she says we're still going. So, I mean, I suppose I'm going to be sad. She was supposed to outlive us all, Cork. She was supposed to outlive us all.
How does that work? How the birthday celebration? Talk to me about that.
Oh, so her birthday's this month in January, and they were doing some big celebration, like, you know, Betty White's 100 years old. There's going to be special guest parties, and they were going to, I guess, I don't know, stream it in movie theaters. I don't know if she was gonna be a part of it. I don't know how it was gonna work, because I don't know, maybe they already recorded it with her. I don't know. But my friend, she's a big Golden Girls fan, and she told me it's one, like, you know, them phantom events, or the events that movie theaters do by whoever puts them on. And I was like, you know, Betty White's cool, so I was looking forward to this. So she had like bought tickets, and I remember asking her, "Are we still going there?" She's like, "Yeah, they're still having it apparently. They're still gonna do it. I guess there's gonna be some memoriam at the end, I suppose now."
Yeah. Boy, that is a little different environment, I would imagine. The tone is going to be a lot different.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm assuming they're re-recording the interviews and things like that. They have to be, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. I would hope at a minimum they have to at least acknowledge that at some point at the celebration. It'd be a little strange otherwise. Ooh.
Yeah. You know, it's my favorite Betty White fun fact. She is older than sliced bread.
What?
Yeah, like, you know, the old saying, like, you're old, like, as old as, like, yeah, when she was born, bread was still sold in the whole loaves. This was before they started slicing it as, like, a, you know, a rule of thumb. So she is, in fact, was older than sliced bread.
Well, that's good to know. Thank you for that.
Yes, that is good to know. But people, we are here for video games, which I assume Betty White played. For the sake of this podcast, she did. There's a connection there.
There you go.
But we have a great show planned for you today with a first timer to the show, the great, the wonderful Jeff Cork. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for having me.
Of course, thank you for joining us. It's been a long time coming, but we finally made it happen. And Cork, just in case people at home don't know, who are you and what do you do?
Oh my goodness. Well, I worked at Game Informer magazine for 14 years. That's where I met you. And I left last March to join the PR side of the gaming industry.
There you go. That is how we met. All those years, 14 years. Oh man, you know, when I hear those numbers, I'm like, wow, that's amazing. Go you. But I'm also at that point in my life, I think my longest job stint was like 2.5 years, maybe 3. And I'm just like, oh man, I maybe that's like a thing of my generation. You know, I'm always reading things like, you know, we're killing, you know, whatever industry now. But yeah, like the longest job I've worked so far I think it's been 3 years. I think the longest out of my friends, I have a friend that's been working at Chase for like 5, and I think he's winning like the race.
Yeah, that's a good way to do it, though. I think like you get settled in, and like if you have the temperament for it, that's totally great. But at the same time, if you're a person who likes to find new challenges and get excited about new stuff, that's doing it like more of like a mercenary approach is absolutely the way to go.
Well, that's actually what we're going to be talking about today. Today, people, we're going to be discussing the possible death end of E3. We don't know that for sure, but it is sure not looking pretty. Everyone's always riding it off, but I have a little hope. We're going to pull through. But before that, we're going to be talking about toxicity in games, because this is a little bit different. We've always had this problem in the game industry, and one could argue it's been getting better or worse, but the game industry is fighting back in a multitude of ways. But before that, we are going to be talking about transitioning, actually, from games media to games PR, because as you know, I've recently done that myself, and Cork has done that as well. So we're going to give you a look, you know, behind the looking glass, so to speak, of what those two worlds are like. And Cork, I just want to ask you, you have a much higher tenure than me. What was some of the challenges for you, or just biggest differences after 14 years, you know, covering games and now, you know, being on the PR side of things?
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where it's a lot different, but at the same time, the similarities are such that I feel like I'm bringing a lot of value to it, right? So it's like I'm learning a lot of new stuff and doing things I never thought I would be doing. And then also I'm able to lean on the knowledge and skills that I have accumulated during my time on the media side of things, right? So probably the biggest thing that I've enjoyed so far is like the thing that I liked about writing about games for the longest time was like I like working with developers. I like sharing their stories with the world and learning how they work and what they're working on and stuff like that. So pitching features is basically one of my favorite things to do when I was writing about games. And that's still something that I get to do, though it's different. I'm not pitching it to my editors. I'm pitching it to like a particular outlet or everything like that. And yeah, that's like probably the most fun that I have. Yeah.
Oh, most definitely. Do you ever miss attending shows or going to like media events? Well, I guess you still can, just on the other side of things.
Yeah, exactly. Just on the other side of things. Like I was at the Game Awards and you know, we announced a game there and it was like really fun to see like it was revealed there, to see the reaction of the audience and like track it online to see how people are thinking about everything. And then yeah, it was like satisfying in a different way, you know, and it's like ultimately like I did the GI thing for a very long time. I never considered myself like I was never a person who was like, I want to be an influencer. I want to put myself out there and my brand and everything. I'm totally content to kind of lurk on the sidelines and do the work and everything. So like I don't miss not being like having to have a hot take for everything or just the like the public persona thing, which I kind of had a weird relationship with to some degree, but yeah.
Oh no, I definitely get that. One of the big, I guess, reliefs for me is similar to what you said, not having to have a hot take, but also not feeling the need to have an opinion on anything really. Not saying that I still don't, but you know, insert big game comes out and oh man, you know, you don't have to be, but you know, you got to play it to some degree. You got to have something meaningful to say. And then, you know, about time you're done with that, up here comes games B, C, D, E, F, G. You know, then you have to do this balancing act of, all right, here's the things I want to play, and I'm just going to have an opinion about just period, so don't have to worry about that. Here are the things that, for the sake of my job, I need to, regardless of opinion. And then here are, like, you know, I don't know about you, but I always felt the need to have, like, a deeper or unique, quote-unquote, take on, like, oh, you know, here's this awesome game you've never heard of that I liked, and, you know, some I guess, you know, above average knowledge on something. You know, I always felt the need. I couldn't just have an average gamer take. I had to have some nuance thing that, you know, basically prove that I am deserving of your time and or any position or voice I've been giving.
And, 100%. Yeah. I find that like I still like it's important to have an idea of what's going on in the industry. Like that has not changed at all, but it's broader and I get to focus more on the stuff. Like when I'm playing games at home for fun now, I don't feel guilty, I'll say, about, boy, I could come up with like a feature idea. This would be like interesting, or like feel like, oh, the time I'm spending on this game, I really should be playing these others because we've got game of the year considerations to worry about. And, you know, you want to make sure you're playing as many contemporary things as possible so that you're giving everything like an informed voice when it does come to those year-end lists and everything. So it's been liberating to just like, you know what, I just want to play a bunch of Binding of Isaac, and then I'm going to play some Returnal, and I'll let feature ideas just pass through my brain and they don't have to go anywhere.
Oh yeah, 100%. You know, we all know that Armageddon Day is coming next month in February with like AAA releases, you know, every day, every week, every minute of that month. And, you know, I remember before I was like, oh God, you know, what am I gonna play? Which two games do I need to have an opinion on? And I remember one of the things I was worrying about. So I have Horizon, but I haven't beaten it. Like I don't know what happened. It was one of those games like you buy, you're playing, but then something else came out and you needed to play that immediately for some reason. And then the game you're currently playing just gets pushed in. And I was like, oh man, I'm gonna have to beat the first one and understand, and then play the second one. But now all those worries are gone. I can just play them at my leisure and enjoy them. And
to be clear, a lot of that, I think for me, it was like a self-motivated thing too. Like, it's not like I was being told you can't play Returnal or Binding of Isaac. It was just kind of like I had a hard time turning it off, you know, just because when you enjoy what you're doing at work and you enjoy doing the same activity when you're not at work, it's easy for like those lines to blur and everything like that. And similarly, like we had at GI a team that was large enough and had enough experts where I was never got like a Slack message saying, "Hey Cork, we're doing a podcast. You have to tell us why Returnal sucks." And like manufacture this opinion real quick or anything like it. It was never like that, but it was like you knew that like there's important to have like interesting opinions and things that are worth talking about, right? And that could be really hard when you're just so busy, you know, to keep up with everything.
Yeah, and I don't know about you, but I feel like you get weird game cravings. I don't know if that's the right term, but I'm gonna call it a craving at time. Cause I was about to boot up Psychonauts 2 on Game Pass, and then like I don't know why I was just like, you know, it'd be real cool right now to replay Cyberpunk 2077.
Yeah,
and then it was like, and it was literally like over this break, I was literally gonna be like, I'm gonna beat Psychonauts 2, and then there was just this creeping feeling like, you know what you could do at winter break? Play Cyberpunk, and I played Cyberpunk. Don't know why. And it felt right. You know, I thought maybe I'll get like 2-3 hours in and I'm like, oh crap, you know, you start remembering all the things you gotta do to get to the fun part or the part that's making you want to play. And I'm like, oh no, I'm having a good time.
Yeah, for sure. One thing I do miss about the press side is that there was always like, you get assigned a review. It's like, well, I'm going to beat this game now. So like, I've always been kind of a dabbler at heart where I just kind of poke in and out of different like franchises and games, but there was always a large percentage of like, if I'm reviewing a game, I'm going to beat it. That's just how it is. Right. So that now I don't have an exterior mandate saying, "Hey Cork, you have to beat this." Right. So like, if I start to get to a point where I'm like, I think this is really frustrating, or I'm just not feeling this, I could just jump off, and it's fun to do that. But at the same time, it makes me feel a little guilty because it's, especially when like the conversation is like, oh, once you get to like level 3, you're not going to believe it. And you're like, yeah, but I hate it at level 2. So I don't know if I can take it.
Oh, you know, there's been a few games like that for me that I've been trying to jump into, and I'm just like, you know, people were like, oh man, you know, you got to play the first one, but if not, you can play the second one. They go back to the first one. Any conversation that starts with, you gotta wait for it to get good is always the hard sell, and it's like,
oh yeah, or like,
it's like how long is the wait? They're like, and it's always funny because it's never like 5 hours. It's always like at the 15-hour mark. You know, it really just starts pulling it together, and it's like, as someone who loves Metal Gear, I get that. Like I get that, but it's like I can't. There's a certain level of grind I'm willing to accept and not willing to accept.
Oh yeah, I think Metal Gear is a really great example because like I love that series, but I can understand it's a big ask to tell someone, hey, you need to go play this. Keep in mind, it was released during the PlayStation era. Nobody knew what they were doing with controls, so you're going to use the shoulder buttons in ways that don't make sense to you as a person now. But trust me, back then it was tolerable. It's like, no, that's not fair.
You know, it's funny because I always tell people that Mario 64 is still very much playable today, and people will argue me to death and call me crazy. And I'm like, no, it is. The N64 controller makes perfect sense. They're like, there's only one thumbstick. You only needed one. We only had one, and we made it work.
Yeah, then you have the C buttons that just kind of turn into like moving the camera on like a track, kind of. It was like, that was adequate. That was fine.
And I don't know if I'm clouded by nostalgia or that's all we had, so of course it was fine. But in my mind, I'm like, it's not that bad. Like I have played modern games, and I have played games that have definitively bad controls, and I'm like, this is not bad. I dare say it was fine, but yeah, you tell anyone nowadays that you play anything with one analog stick, and their mind like blows up.
Yeah. So with you, I'm really interested to hear your story about everything, because I have long been an admirer of you and been like frustrated on your behalf, just for someone who like puts the time in. And I'm not a huge fan of the word hustler, but like if I was a big fan of it, like you would be a hustler. Like you are one of the like most dogged and determined people that I know. Like seriously, and you've always had such a remarkable positive attitude about it. When, if we're being honest, like I think you have not gotten your fair share, you know, for the amount of work you've put in and like the time and everything. But like, so I'm wondering if you could like walk me through your journey to like how you decided to move to the other side, as they always say, but it's just the same thing.
Well, I guess it's real interesting. First of all, thank you. I appreciate your kind words. But it was so after, you know, my long stint of, you know, trying to make it, you know, I call it my backpack era of like, you know, I just threw everything on my back and was just kind of like, I'm going to make it happen. And, you know, sometimes I look back and I don't realize all the things that I've done. Like sometimes I'm like, man, I was in like the middle of Germany by myself, just being like video games. We met at Gamescom. That was fun.
Yeah, had Indian food.
Yeah, we had Indian food. And then I think about like my time in Japan, where it's like, I'm just a guy with like a backpack and I'm just gonna make it happen. And like, you know, in my mind, it's kind of like, you've done it, so it doesn't seem like phenomenal to you because like, well, I did it. You know, it's not like I climbed Mount Everest. But then like you look back and you're like, man, maybe I did climb Mount Everest, you know, metaphorically speaking. But so one of my friends used to always tell me, like, man, why don't you try to do something that's like not media? And I'm like, well, I don't know how to code, so I can't design games for that standpoint. And I've shared this with very few people, but I guess I'll now say that like my ultimate goal in like video games as a whole is to be like a narrative designer, to write like amazing game stories, to be like Cory Balrog, to be like, I'm taking a series I like and I'm writing a story and I completely changed the series and it's amazing. Not saying it wasn't amazing before, but you know, or you know, to be like, you know, the Amy Henning of like, you know, my time or something like that, or dare I say the Miyamoto, but I can't program, so I don't know at what state, at what realm I could be him. But that's always been like the end all dream, you know, my mountain peak, so to speak, and then whatever's beyond that. And so my friends always encouraged me, like, why don't you do something else? And I was like, but I don't know if I have the skills to do anything else. Like, yeah, I want to be a narrative designer, but there's not like a junior route to that. At least not that I know of, you know. There's, you know, I can't go to, you know, big studio and be like, I've written 0 games. Give me a job.
Yep.
And then I thought like, well, I don't know how to write any. I didn't know what the barrier of entry for that was. Because in my mind, I would always, you know, make it to some big outlet, meet people, you know, learn the ropes, and then, you know, branch out from there. But after like 2020 happened and all these things, I was like, you know what, maybe I should take this. This was the adult. I had grew up enough in the world. When I hit 30, I was like, man, I'm at that weird age where like I kind of have to figure something out here. Because as sad as I'll say, like I got to the point where like I can't. So a lot of the reasons why I only worked places 1 or 2 years was because I always took off for game things, you know. I took off for E3, I took off for PAX. And then once I made it to the international cons, I was like, I will do 1 a year. Like, clearly, I don't have the resources or time to go to both, like, Gamescom and TGS. But I was like, with proper planning, I can probably just alternate years between the two. And then I ended up going to Comic-Con, too. So that became, like, a new thing. So I was like, well, Jesus, I got to plan for E3, Comic-Con, 3 PAXs, and a possible international show. Not to mention any, like, random... like media, you know, not on a piece, so you know, like, oh, here's a media event for insert game here, you've been invited. And I'm like, well, I'm not turning down like a free plane ticket and like a game event. Like, it's crazy talk. So I started looking at all game options. So I started applying to, like, you know, if Ubisoft had an opening, if EA had an opening, if the Pokemon company had an opening, you know, things from like junior copywriter to, you know, video editor to, you know, I want to say personality or host, but it's probably like, you know, everything in the video game world now on the media side, you're a personality / host, I feel like. That's just kind of like a subset of any job. And so I started applying to, those things. And then eventually I started to see PR jobs open up. And I was like, I never saw myself working in gaming PR. I like, it was never the path. After, working so hard to achieve a certain career goal, you don't consider those things. And I was like, and I've always heard stories that PR is something you do after you become established, like you're established. And I always say that's the move. That's where journalists go. They all go to PR in some way, shape, or form. And they go off to do crazy cool things. Like I know Tim also went that route as well, I believe.
Yeah. He went to Capcom, and then now he's at PlayStation.
Yeah. And so I was just like, well, I'm going to put my foot forward. And so I applied to jobs and I landed some interviews. Fun fact, between the months of September 2021 to November 2021, that 2 month period, I had more interviews in my life than I've ever had, period.
Oh, wow. So you should be like a professional at it now.
Yes, I guess like the stars aligned, and anything that I applied for, even on the media side, like I just ended up interviewing for it. And, I'm thankful for that. And, and then I work for Stride PR now, people, if you haven't heard me say that. And, that was one of the people, I interviewed with. And I remember I went in with a very different mindset than I normally do so before in the game industry, I had an interview, it was always like, I'm so grateful, I would like this opportunity, and then all my mindset shifted to, and I remember, I guess it worked out, but every interview I had, I went in going with, this is my breath to work. These are the things that I've done. And I'm at the point now, if these things are still inadequate for me to have a position in the industry, I have no idea what else I could do or tell you. All my interviews were like that, because that's just kind of where I was. I was like, this is all that I've done. And I honestly feel like there is not more I can do at this level of not having like an official title.
Right.
There's no sea I can cross. There's no con I can conquer. There's no article I can write at this point that will be more than collectively what I've done. And apparently, I guess, that note struck a chord, and Stride was one of the first people to reach out back to me. They told me, more about what they did and what I would be doing. And one of the things I always liked about game is going to cons, meeting people, meeting developers, talking to gamers, and just as something I've really loved done. And, we haven't been able to do that fully since, the pandemic, unfortunately. And I thought to myself, I guess these are some of my favorite parts of the industry. Maybe I won't be, a personality. Maybe I won't be on as many shows, and I won't be doing the things I thought I would do. But at its core, I would still be doing a lot of things that I was already doing, except now I'll get a paycheck for it.
There you go. Exactly. And so much of it, like you're saying, like you're a really personable guy and you are good at making relationships. And that's such a huge part of it, right?
Yeah. And so I was just like, when the world opens up again, I haven't got to see fully what the other side is like, because, we've been working and, learning in these different capacities of how we do things. But, I really feel like whenever we get back to that point of, normalcy, wherever that will take, that I can really, run with this and do the things, because, like I said, the only real difference is I won't be the guy in front of the camera as much as I used to be. But outside of that, I feel like I'm still doing everything I would normally do.
Yeah. It's something I've been like thinking about a lot lately, is just how, I want to dismiss how awful the pandemic has been for everyone. It's, just been a disaster all around. I'd say one kernel of a good thing is just that I think it has made people more open to the idea of remote work, particularly in this part of the business, where not only are employers open to having employees kind of scattered all over the country, right, and seeing the benefits of that, but also like clients are completely used to having video conferencing and stuff like that. So like my employers are able to get clients that ordinarily, like, you have to be a lot closer, just for this to work. It's like, that's not really the reality anymore. So I will say that's like one positive thing. And it's like, I know, like for me, I live in Minnesota, and it's like, I've got kids, and I know a lot of the action is on the coasts, and it would not be fair. I would not want to move away from here, right? We've established this is our home and this is where our life is. But it was kind of like, well, what do I do if I want to stay in the game industry, right? Do I want to be a buyer for Target or Best Buy for, they're both headquartered here. And it's like, I could see that being interesting, but at the same time, I don't know if it's a fit, but yeah, I'll say, I don't know. Like, how has it been for you being remote?
It's been good so far. Actually, no complaints. My mom was worried when I told her that, I was going to like goof off all day and etc. And I had to explain to her that my generation is a little different. That transition was more or less seamless for us. I know, because like she had a real hard time with it. God bless her heart. And she was worried. I was like, I did one time. I was like, Mom, it's okay. I know how to sit at a computer for hours and do things, because that's what my generation has done for a very long time at this point. And so when I started working my job, I was just like, oh man, it's just because I worked in corporate America for so long, of like in the worst sense of that, like, middle managers and, oh, you haven't done work for like 2 minutes straight. What are you doing?
Yeah.
And, the whole like, you're leaving at 5 o'clock. That's strange. I mean, I know it's quitting time, but yeah. And so not having to deal with that was already a huge plus. But it's been good because so a lot of my things, a lot of work is video game related, like 99.9%. And I'm doing research on how well a game's performing, and it's like, oh no, I have to go to Twitch and YouTube and look up this game. Like, oh, like woe is me. And then I recently had a campaign, my first not campaign, but my first outreach on Twitter of like, hey, content creators, and like, so like the interaction I had with that was so humbling in a way, which it's been my most rewarding part of my job, because I had a lot of people reach out to me and be like, hey, can I possibly do this campaign that you said you're planning for one of your games, for sponsorship? And I'm like, yeah. And like, Cork, it blew my mind, because I had people be like, here's my channel, I haven't really done anything, like, very, humbly come to me, and like they have like 150,000 followers, and I'm like, what in your mind makes you think you haven't done anything, or you haven't amassed any you have done nothing notable in your space? Like their average viewership is something like upwards of over 50K, as just a single person. And I'm like, yeah, I know you don't have millions, you're not the ninjas and Pokemans of the world, but you've done a lot. Like and then just some people just ask me for, advice and thing. And I tell them, I'm like, my first E3, I maybe had like 200 followers on Twitter and basically no real accolades to my name. Like, y'all are like eons further than you think you are. And I guess it was just nice to see that like people who I would say accomplished more than I have, just still are in this mindset that they're still at this place where they can't do anything. And so I guess it feels nice to be in a place to be like, I'm telling you can, because I have achieved less, not like I'm less, but I have not yet achieved these things that y'all already have. Like, when I first just started putting myself out there. And I guess I'm seeing in our industry, there's this whole everything or nothing approach everyone seems to have. You're either at the top or you're at the bottom, and there's no in between. And I get that, because I've experienced that feeling and I've seen it. And I feel like I don't know how long I'm gonna be in PR, but it's become like a personal goal. Like, I guess one of my personal goals, for the year, or maybe as long as I'm doing this, is to show people that who want to make it that you can make it, and that what you've already doing is enough to get you in the shows, to get you, sponsorships, to get you wherever you're trying to get.
That's a really great way to look at it too, because it's like you're able to give people validation that maybe would have been nice for you when you were doing all that work to hear more, Maybe I'm reading too much into it.
Oh no. That's it. I mean, because other than that, I mean, I'm still relatively new, so I don't have all the stories. I'm still waiting for that big reveal of, oh, here's this game I knew about for years or months or what have you, and now it's out in the wild, the first trailer, and see if people go, gaga for it, hopefully.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, I guess my biggest thing is like I just want to help people in the best way I can. Because like you said, I did it without validation just because it's something I just truly wanted. Like I read a quote one, you can't ignore something that stains your soul. And that's kind of how I viewed gaming. So it was kind of like, regardless of, how much money I am or ain't getting, regardless of the recognition I'm or not getting, like it was such a driving factor inside me that I was able to just push through, even if it had to be alone at times. And I don't expect every person to have that power of will with everything they do. So I just, the places where I can tap someone on the back and say, you're doing a good job, keep going, I would try to use my position for that.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
And I guess that also goes into our next topic about toxicity and gaming.
Hey, that's awful. No, thank you. There, am I doing it? I don't know.
Yeah, but no, and I guess we talked about this on the show before, but what I'm finding interesting recently, Cork, about toxicity and gaming is we finally, what I feel like we've transitioned from we all agree it's bad and let's shame it phase to now the action phase to where, we were seeing major Reddits, official Reddits being shut down, message boards, moderators taking new actions on Twitch and all these platformers. And, and then, it makes you wonder was Nintendo's ultimate decision to never have voice chat truly the wrong decision? We all say it is, but you see everything going on. And of course, I just wonder, I was just like, I'm not saying there was a tipping point, but I guess it's just interesting to see, we grew up in Halo 2 era. We grew up in the only way to chat with someone is they're sitting right next to you era. We've seen the evolution of, communication in games. And I just find it fascinating. I'm curious to see how you feel about it, to see that literal companies, the moderation of their boards are taking things to be like, if y'all can't get this together, if you can't handle the tour, we're just going to take it away from you.
Yeah.
Essentially.
It's interesting because I think looking back, one of the things you always hear is every young person should be required to work in a restaurant industry and retail for 6 months so that they have appreciation of what that's like. And so you won't be such an ass to people as you get older. I feel like this is probably a big ask, but I wish that everyone had grown up playing Street Fighter 2 in arcades where it's go ahead, run your mouth, but don't be surprised if someone elbows you in the eyeball if they don't like it. You know what I mean? So they were I was never a trash talker. It's just not in my nature, but there's always mouthy guys at those things. And more than a couple of times I've seen them get probably where I think any jury would say, yeah, they totally deserved that. So whatever. So I don't know. It's something I have always been a self-imposed, I mute my mic. I don't communicate in voice chat, which I'm sure reduces the efficiency of teamwork in a lot of games, but it's just it's just not worth it. So I've saved myself decades of hearing the worst of the worst. And you know what? I sleep well at night.
Oh, most definitely. It's an interesting tidbit because I always ask myself, it was bad back in the day, the wild, wild west when it was first thing. And I think, but was it ever truly this bad? Because, again, like I said, I think, people in that era clearly knew, for the most part, knew what it was like to, game in person or game not with this. And I think everyone was just kind of initially just excited to be part of the experience. Yeah, you had your usual jerks. But I would say, out of every match, it was 8 out of 10. 8 would be good, 2 would be bad.
Yeah.
And maybe 1 or 2 more in the mid-range. Where, as long as everything was going fine, but no one was attacking, anyone's personal character or anything like that. It would be more just the stuff. And now, it's almost like I play Apex Legends with my friends. And it's we'll be it'll be 2 of us and someone queues up and some guy's hey, how you got it? And my friend's oh crap, private queue, forgot. And then completely like the guy said nothing wrong. It's just like, oh, a voice that is not someone I already know. No, thank you.
Yep. I totally get that. I think like it's always been bad, which I don't think by any means makes it acceptable. But I think like people now have platforms to like they can brigade in ways that they could not before. They can like spread their messages good and bad in ways that they couldn't before, right? Like, so when you're playing like Halo, someone says something dumb, that's where that lived and died, right? Unless they were like way ahead of the time and they were like uploading like a video file of that at whatever horrible frame rate and everything that would have been, and like good luck having like access to a video server or whatever. But like now it's just really easy to like clip stuff into like the reaction that people want to get a reaction. It's just like, oh yeah, I'll just act like the worst person, and it riles people up and it gets engagement. So yeah.
And then so the thing you said, that which I find interesting, is because it's so counterproductive in a way to where, we reach levels where people are like, I'm not talking to randoms, point blank period.
Mm-hmm.
Just not even gonna roll the dice on that.
Yeah.
And so you end up with a system that was created to communicate, engage, meet new people, that people respectively are just like, no thank you. Like, unless it's someone I know, I'm not doing it in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, and like the DualSense controller, it's like a button I have to push so that mic doesn't go on, right?
Yeah, and it's so weird because like I'll have like my headset on, but the controller's still doing its thing. I'm just like, wow, that's cool and crazy at the same time. Mm-hmm. And now, like I said, we're taking a step further where actual forums are being, punished and or shut down. And it is, and I find it interesting. So it's like, okay, I can't talk on the mic because I'll get banned or reported, and then my account suspended. And I'll go on the forum, but now I can't use the forum. And and it's just, it's weird because I wouldn't be surprised if we go through a phase where it's like, maybe it's not for the system as a whole, but certain games are just like, we're taking the Nintendo route. There's just no voice chat.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, were we given fire and we weren't ready to wield it yet?
Yeah, that totally makes sense. I find too, like, it's easier for me because like this is one of the advantages of getting older, is that you slowly kind of disengage, or it's easy to. So I feel like my relationship with a lot of this stuff, just like when I watched the last Spider-Man movie, I didn't have any of it spoiled for me because I'm not living and breathing it. That's like my existence is not on social media. I didn't watch a trailer, so I was surprised by everything. And it's like, if I wanted, I would never just like hang out on a forum, and just like, this is my community. So it's like, I will go to the official forum for Game X, but only if it's like, hey, is this part glitched? Or like, how did I get past this one part? I've banged my head on it for 2 hours. Like, and then I'll see the thread, I'll read the answers, and then I'm off. I don't need to like subscribe and like make a nest and here's my new home with people who like this game. I just don't have that. I don't want to say like, oh, I don't have the time. I just am not wired that way ultimately,
Yeah, it makes sense. I wish there was some form of, in one of the internet's greatest gifts, I guess, is anonymity. But like, because I was like, I wish you could like somehow just divvy up by age group. I'm like, well, you could just lie, and then we're all at the new problem. And it's a interesting thing, but I am, like I said, I think the new trend is I feel like more often than not, it seems like game companies are taking the power back in their hands and saying, we're going to keep taking this away. We're going to keep banning, we're going to keep muting, we're going to keep, and then, we're all going to end up back to just, using like, the pinpoint systems, like the pre-clipped enemy here, I need help. And that's what everything, because I wouldn't be surprised if we enter an era where you could only voice chat with like, people on your friends list. Like if they're not on your friends list, there'll be some, it'll be back to just, I mean, the pinpoint systems have now super advanced. Like I can play Apex Legends and communicate everything I want to without talking to anyone. They have all the prompts and all the things and bells and whistles, and it's real cool. And, more games as we get, keep integrating that online. To, if you don't have a mic or you just don't feel like talking. So I guess, we'll be like that.
Yeah, I like played a lot of Overwatch, for years and never plugged my mic in. And like you say, like you could totally communicate and get things done as a team by just like using like the little text chat things. That's perfectly fine.
I always make this joke that believe it or not, I'm pretty calm on most games except when it comes to like Nintendo games. I'm talking like Smash Brothers, Mario Kart, Pokemon Unite. For the little stint I played that, and I always joke with my friends like, it's ironic that Nintendo doesn't have voice chat, but if they did, these were probably the games I'll be screaming the most in. And
100%.
Like, and I'm not even talking about maybe not even at like a person, but just at like the powers that be, the gods of this game and the situations they have put me in, especially Mario Kart. That meme where it says sorry for the things I say in Mario Kart. Oh, that's 100% true for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And you see the replay and the way everyone like looks over their shoulder at you at that last second pass it's not great.
Oh, that's the worst. And oh yeah, Pokemon Unite. I am not a MOBA guy. I'm glad that was my little stint in MOBAs. I can't do it, Cork. I am not built for that stress. I am not built for that stress. I am not built for a game that requires everybody to be doing a task.
Yeah.
Because it requires everyone to do a task and people won't do them.
Oh gosh, yeah. Anytime you got to rely on like other people, it can fall apart. And then at that point, it's like, is it toxic to just say like, please do better? I mean that like in a kind way that probably doesn't translate if I were to type it, but we're all learning here and trying to be good people, but maybe don't do what you're doing. That's a lot for like a little auto macro prompt, but
it's like, please be better. Parentheses, I promise this is not aggressive in any way, shape, or form.
I want us all to reap the benefits of everyone doing their best. Please.
And then, me and my friend would be queued up in matches, and we'd be like, we have to be playing with 5-year-olds, right? They have to literally be like 10 or younger. I don't know what you were doing, sir. You were counterproductive to the goal of this game in every way. Yeah, please stop. Like, please go in the corner and just stop moving. That action will be infinitely better than whatever this you were doing.
Exactly. You are blocking a bridge. That's what you're doing. Go in the corner, please.
Oh man, there was this one match. So in Pokemon Unite, you have to score goals and you can accumulate points, but like there's a cap to how many points you can hold, and then you're just sitting on them. And we had this guy. We did the thing where we beat the boss in the middle, and the goals defenses go down, and it's free goals. Just walk there and we had this guy, and it's double points. It's like this guy's sitting on 50 points. He just has to go to one of the defenseless goals and just deposit his points. We've done all this hard work, and he's like, we're looking at him on the map, and he's clearly confused about what he should be doing. And it's like, go to the goal, the team wins. Just do that. Yeah. And then he sees one of our goals being attacked, and he goes to like try to like protect it, and we're like, no, the game is over. Go deposit your points. We can't deposit the points because you picked up all the points to be deposited. So you are now the wielder of these points. We're in the end game. We don't have time to go accrue points. Just go deposit your points. It's literally something like now. We're losing the game by 1 point. You have 50, which will be multiplied to 100. Just walk to point B. It is unguarded because they are now trying to destroy our stuff because we're all on their area of the map. But they don't have the time to destroy a goal and do all the necessary things. And like they're just running in circles, and they're like, oh, they're fighting over there, and it's like, screw the fight. Just understand the rules, please, sir. Please.
And of course, you're in dock mode because like the Switch is perfect for flinging across the room like a frisbee and taking out your Switch and TV at the same time. Ugh. Yeah.
So yeah, long story short, we lost the match because this person was just literally running around in a daze, and I was like, and it doesn't even have it doesn't have the thing to tell you, like, it has the random ones like, good job, yay, thumbs up, like nothing to indicate do something.
Yeah. That like it's funny too to see how like even the good job or well played, those get weaponized for just like sarcasm. You know, like if you put like a clapping emote, that's immediately just going to be like, great job, great job, great job. They're just going to spam that. So ultimately, you just can't win. Like people are going to be salty, and they will find a way to bring it down.
Oh yeah, completely. I love Splatoon's system because it's like just nonsense scores like booyah, cuckoo ka-chow, and it's like I don't even know what this conveys. Like I assume booyah is good, but then like it's like the little nonsensical things they say, and I'm just like, okay, Nintendo, like I get it, it's cute, it's fun, it's kid friendly, but I'll be playing a match and someone's just like spamming booyah, and I'm like, I don't know what you want me to do. Maybe like if I was on like the Splatoon Reddit, there's like a code that they figured out. So,
yeah.
you know, like 2 of these means this one. But I've never looked that far, so I'm just like, do you need help?
I guess I'll booyah back.
I mean, you just beat the guy, or and then you know they'll do like weird dances where like some guys like, I'm like, oh man, what is this? What are we? Is this a plan? Too low, one high. Is that what we're doing?
Oh
yeah,
no,
it's my favorite part. But so, all right, Cork. So I've been blessed to go to E3, 2014, 2019. I think that's 6-7 years. I believe that's 6 years. I've been to E3 for 6 years straight. I told myself I would never miss a show, but you know, things happen. You know, I don't know how many times you've been, but we're now at the era, you know, the rumors have always been is E3 in trouble, you know, long, you know, for a long time, every year, but then, you know, things started happening, like companies started pulling out, started having their own adjacent shows, you know, those rumors got a little more life. And then we had the last 2 years where they let the public in, but had no actually plan for the public. And that was a giant faux pas. And, you know, now because of the pandemic, and, you know, we've had E3, well, we missed the year E3, we had E3 online, and now we're into this uncertainty of E3's canceled again in person, and we don't know what the digital event is looking like, if there will even be one. So now, you know, we finally come to that pivotal point where, are we legit at the end of E3?
Oh, geez. Yeah. I have no idea. Like, I can't provide any real insight there because it is just kind of, it sure seems like, if nothing else, I think like with most things in the game industry, everything has just changed, right? Which is not a profound statement, but I mean, like, you look at like my job when I first started back when I was at GI to when I left, like everything changed, right? I think the advent of streaming media and like publishers and developers realized that they can go directly to people, that you don't necessarily need a physical booth in the same way that you used to. So I think at a minimum, I would hope the ESA is able to find a way to adapt. I don't know if it's too late for that or what, but something's got to change for sure.
Yeah, and I always felt it was weird in a sense that because despite any negative critique of E3, you know, throughout the years, you know, warranted, not warranted, you know, it doesn't matter, that E3 has always been synonymous with gaming and synonymous with the crown jewel of gaming. Like, you know, you ask any gamer, they'd be like, what would you love to do? Oh, I would love to go to E3. And, you know, that's, you know, probably before, you know, I was in it, you know, clearly when I was in it, you know, that's always everyone's like, you know, if you go to E3, you've made it somehow, you know, it's, you know, and after being there, that's not technically true, but it does give you this sort of like sense of belonging, sense of like, wow, I'm this is where things happen and I'm here and they're happening, you know, right here, you know, right, you know, inches away from me, you know, at the press conferences and everything. And, you know, and despite all that, it still has that feeling because, you know, I saw these posts when people were like, E3 may be over. You know, you saw these people, oh, I never made it. I never went. Oh, God, you know, this quintessential dread. And I'm just like, clearly the industry would survive, but what would a literal just no E3 presence look like in the gaming world? You know, I feel like it'd be one of those things that if it went away, like people would be counting down the days until it came back, you know, for its glorious Phoenix resurrection of some kind.
Mm-hmm. It definitely, like, it's a weird show. I think shows just in general are strange, just because, like, though there are the showcases that are streamed and everything, like when it was in person, there's also a lot of like networking, which, you know, that doesn't really help consumers or anything really. But there's also a ton of like demos that are happening behind closed doors. So it's like the media was able to kind of distribute, like, share their thoughts on something beyond just the trailer, right? So that's one of the things that seems like they have not found a good workaround, where it's like, here's the trailer now, like when it's just online only, and it's like, beyond that, I hope you got invited to this other event that happened a week before E3, because otherwise there's really not much else to really supplement that kind of coverage, right? So I think it just makes the whole thing seem a little less special than it used to be.
Oh yeah, most definitely. I feel E3, you know, to what you're saying, to your point, is not a show that is not something that can be translated to online.
Mm-hmm.
Because E3 is a spectacle. Like, because I remember in my early years, you know, watching things like game trailers or anyone who would do it. But like, my favorite video was like the E3 floor, where, you know, it was just a long video and you see the towering Nintendo wall, the towering Xbox wall, you know, I should say the dueling Xbox PlayStation wall. You see these grand booths, you know, big and small. You know, you just watched, you know, Breath of the Wild be announced, and now you see the sprawling Nintendo booth with, you know, life-size Links and larger than life this and that. And then, you know, I'm trying to think of something that really stuck with me at a show that I didn't attend, because these are things I physically saw. But, you know, anything that you saw, you know, and it's larger than life, and there's people everywhere, and there's people in costumes, you know, they're singing, dancing, what have you. And then, like you said, beyond that, so you saw the trailer, but now you get to see all these articles and videos come out with all this extra information that you couldn't get otherwise. And I feel like without that grand spectacle, because I think that's what made E3 larger than life. You know, it wasn't that, oh, you know, the new XYZ game is going to be announced. It's just, yes, it's going to be announced here and stuff, but after the announcement, then, you know, it's like the doors open to Willy Wonka's chocolate factory, and you're let inside, and, you know, and then, you know, you get to see the videos and the stories and all the content that's based off of that. And, you know, you think to yourself that, like, I just would love to go inside one day.
Yeah.
And that's not something that digital event can give you, because then it's just, like you said, it's I want to say it's not like anything else, but those things made E3 E3.
100%. And I know, like, my some of my best memories are covering shows like E3. Like, I think even like Gamescom that was online only, TGS, like the whole online show, I think people are getting a little worn out about it. But like E3 was great because, you know, you go to the EA showcase, and then you got an appointment with 3 other of your colleagues, and you go to the EA booth, and then it's just like, we've got an hour to play a ton of stuff. So then it's just like this, like, I love the coordination and the challenge of like prioritizing what we need to see, what we need to spend time on, who we can interview. I always found that really satisfying. And so I think that's an experience I wish that more people would get, especially like people who are just starting out on the media side, because I think it's an important kind of like boot camp almost for writing about games, right? Is just being able to work as part of a team and manage your time, and then come back to the hotel and write, even though you don't want to write, but, you know, it's your job. So
Fun memories.
I think too with E3, like, it's funny because like the first year that I went was when, I don't know if you remember, it was like, I think it was the 2007, if I'm not mistaken. It was the year that they hosted it in Santa Monica.
Oh,
right. So I was just beyond happy to be there, because like you're saying, that was always like a dream of mine. It's like when I first got hired at GI, I didn't run home. I took the bus, and then told my wife, I'm like, I'm going to get to go to E3. And that is so exciting, and I can't wait for it. And it's like, so we go to Santa Monica, and it was weird because unlike the Los Angeles Convention Center, which is everything's kind of consolidated, the Santa Monica vibe was more like spread out apart into like different suites and everything. It was kind of a low key thing. And then there was also a hangar that people could drive, like take a shuttle bus to. Anyway, it was different. And it was funny because I was just there with like, my eyes were sparkling. I was having the best time ever. I was just like, I can't believe I'm getting paid to play Guitar Hero 2. This is amazing.
Oh, man.
And then everyone like at dinners would be like, this sucks. This is not this is not E3. They should bring it back to LA. I hate this. I'm just like, oh, what are you talking about? This is incredible. It's just funny like how everyone's perceptions of what's good and everything just I don't know. I don't know what the point of that story was, but just like,
I mean, it was your first E3. It was fine.
I loved it.
So I have a funny story. So my first E3, like I said, it was in 2014 is when I made it. And, you know, I'm just bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, as they say. And I remember I was like, I just remember this feeling of just excitement. And my excitement, like, I was so excited that I didn't have the foresight to plan anything. Like, and when I say anything, I mean, I literally land in LA. And this is my first time I've ever flown, period. You know, video games got me to be on a plane for the first time. So first time flying completely by myself. Like, not, first time everything. I don't even have like someone that's flown before with me. Like, so I'm figuring it all out. Like, I'm going through security, you know, it's all like, this is all new. You know, I got no one that's done it before. And so I land and I'm like, oh, okay. You know, I've heard the horror stories of LAX. And I'm like, okay, this isn't too bad. You know, I read some signs, like I'm at the outside and I get this weird feeling and I'm like, oh, this is before Uber and Lyft, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
So, and I'm like, how do I get to my hotel? Like, that's how, like, I was just completely dumbfounded. Like, I'm just standing there and I'm like, wait a minute. Uh-oh. How do I anything? Like, I'm just here now. And then like I walked back in and like I found like the transportation. I took a blue bus. It was like $5 or something. The blue van. I took one of those things, you know, where it's like, what area of town are you going to? And, you know, it is downtown, so it's like, well, you know, that's not hard to find a ride to.
Downtown's kind of big though.
And so I'm on this blue van and I'm seeing people that I've seen on stuff before my whole, like, cause like everyone's getting there around the same time, you know, 3-4 days for the show, what have you. And I'm sitting there and I'm just like, oh man, there's so-and-so and there's so-and-so. There's only 2 people on my blue van and I'm just sitting there and I'm like, do I say something to them? Is that awkward? I don't know the protocol for this. Eventually, once one of them asked me something, so that broke the ice. So thank God for that. And so like I remember I get to my hotel. It was one of the E3 affiliate sites, which I stopped using because I was like, man, these places are mad expensive. I can just like stay at like just like a Motel 6 and be fine with that. But, you know, it was my first time. I didn't know anything. So I was just like, well, this is the affiliate website. And it says to stay at one of these hotels. So I'm there and I remember I'm prepping things and I'm just like, all right, I don't know what I'm doing. I have no idea. I don't know where the convention center is. I don't know where I'm supposed to go. And I figured it out and I told this story to Def. And then I actually made it to all the press conferences that year because I assumed God was on my side because I had an invite to none of them, but I went to all of them just by.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it's the first one that happened. I will tell this story real quick for those who don't know. Since I was staying at one of the E3 sponsored partnership, whatever you call it, hotels. I remember I woke up early that day after I figured I wasn't going to go to any press conferences because you needed fancy invites that had nothing to do with your invite to E3. Pro tip, people. Those are 2 separate things. But so I was like, well, I will use this day. I'll watch it on my phone like the rest of the world. And I'll explore. Like, I'll go to Santa Monica Beach and like sit on the beach and, you know, see stuff I've never seen before and watch this stuff. So I woke up early to go walk to whatever the closest McDonald's was. And there's an Xbox shuttle outside. And, like, I had my badge on because I think I slept in it probably, you know, why not? First E3. And so the Xbox representative was, like, shuttling people on the bus. And she's like, oh, she sees my badge. And she's like, oh, are you getting ready to go to the conference? And I was like, oh, I was just going to grab some breakfast. And then my next thing was going to follow up was I didn't get an invite. But she said, oh, the bus leaves in like 5 minutes. You're not gonna have time for breakfast. Like, you should probably just go and get dressed and come back. And I was just like, okay, I mean, whatever. So I go get dressed. Like, I was dressed, but I, wear something nicer.
Mm-hmm.
And I come back and I see she has a clipboard and she's been like asking people their names. I guess I assume checking for something. And I was like, okay, well, I'll just, go about my merry day because I'm not on any list or anything. And she sees me walking by again and was like, oh, there you are. We were just pulling off. Go ahead and get on the bus. And I'm like, oh, okay. So now I'm sitting on this. So now I'm sitting on this bus, and I see, and there's like a who's who on this bus, and I'm just like, oh god, like no one that I know personally, by the way, but just people from various things. And I get off the bus and we ride to the Coliseum. I think they were still doing it there, and like they're like, have your invite and whatever ready, and I'm just like. And at this point, I'm just like a lemming. I'm just following the crowd, following the lines. And a rational person would think I would have just got out of it. But at this point, now I'm in a different part of LA, so I have no idea where I'm at. So now I'm slightly panicking because I'm just like, oh God, they're not going to let me in. This bus is taking me to God knows where. And I don't know how to get back. And Uber and Lyft doesn't exist yet, so I'm just screwed. And so as I'm walking in this line, getting ready to get rejected, and I'm panicking in my head about what I'm going to do next, some dude in a headset runs out and goes, we're behind schedule. The show is going to start in X amount of minutes. We have this long line of people still trying to get in. It was like, we'll figure this out later. And so like, just throw your business card in the bowl and we're just going to give you a seat. So like, I walk up, I throw my business card in the bowl. Thank God I had some printed out. and they're like, oh, okay, yeah, cool, whatever. And then they give me like my ticket. They're like, you're sitting in section whatever. And I'm just like, all right. And next thing I know, like, I'm at the Xbox press conference, sitting there. I see people out with their laptops and everything, and I'm just like, I have a pen. And then I watch the show in real time, and like, I'm just blown away. Like, I'm not even watching it to cover, or like, I'm just like, the lights, the sounds, the Phil Spencers. I'm just, it's just all too much. And this was back when EA still had their press conferences, and theirs was across the street. And then
everyone just like crossed the street in a big group, and you're you're with the crowd.
Yeah, that's exactly what. Yeah.
Did you have appointments for like companies or like booth tours or anything, or did you just
nothing? Like, I just had.
That terrifies me because like, it's like if you haven't been to E3, like especially before it was open to the public, like you see those big like walk of the show floor videos like you're talking about, right? But like, that giant booth is staffed by someone with, like you say, like a clipboard. So unless you're there, you're not getting through the gate to play the game, So what did you do?
So, fun fact. Well, if you've been to the press conference, they always give you trinkets. Like the Xbox has like Xbox E3 2014 little card, and then like PlayStation gives you a wristband or whatever. And that's how they did it up until like, I think they might have stopped, but for at least the first couple years of when they gave you a wristband. Yeah. And ironically, that wristband is the same wristband that gets you into the Sony booth. Like if you like got into the conference, like I don't know if it's slightly different, but they were on the wristband system. Like, so like once I started doing it the right way, like I found out like when I went to PSX, it was like, oh, you check in. And so instead of having to like check, they will be like, oh, you've checked in, cross it, and then give you, a special wristband or a different wristband that so you could just flash it to, the security guard or doorman, whoever's standing there, so as as a way to get a mass amount of people through without having to. So I got to go do some Sony things because I still had my wristband from the press conference, and I don't know if it was different. I think it might have been a darker or lighter blue, but it was similar enough to where like I went to the Sony booth and they were just like, yeah, the wristband, yeah, you can go to the press media side. And I remember like trying PSVR for the first time and being like, oh my god, And
it's just not gonna be the same when it's all virtual, right? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, and then so I got enough trinkets from going to the press conferences that translated. So I didn't get to go to anything behind the door. That was like my next E3s when I got on like actual list and I took the lessons I learned from like my deep inside and learned like, oh, here are the PR people, like the PR person for Bandai Namco and the PR person for Capcom, and once you reach out to them, then you can like have scheduled booth time, and then that led to other things. And I just used that building block to learn how the system worked, and then it was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. I'm so glad that I heard that story and everything's fine, because like that just makes me real nervous. Everything about that.
Oh yeah, so it was completely a trial by fire, which I think I survived.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I have a fun story once. So I'm good with head of PR at PlayStations and public relations. Me and him are cool. Don't ask me how. I literally have no idea. I met him at an E3 once, and I didn't know who he was. And thank God I didn't, because I wouldn't be able to talk to him so casually. Because don't tell anyone, but I've snuck into my few share of events. And one event I was at, he was like, "How'd you get in here?" And I was just like, not knowing who he was. So I just honestly told him, and he was like, "That's hilarious. Well, next time you need help, just reach out to me." He gave me his card. And
Nice.
We built a relationship. And then so for the last PSX, the one that was in 2018, he'd actually personally reached out to me because we had built a relationship up. And he was like, "Hey, Odell, were you planning on going to PSX?" And I was like, "I was not, because I was not." And he was just like, "Oh, well, you want to go?" And I was like, "Yes, I will make arrangements." And so I go to PSX. Again, backpack. And this is before God of War 2018. So they had like a big to do about God of War, a big to do about the HD remake of, what's the game where you fight the Titans? Shadow of the Colossus. There we go. Yeah. That was that year. And I remember, so then like, I had like Platinum Band, PlayStation, again, they love their bands, access. And so I go to like, the super exclusive media behind, like I got to play like Donut County and some other things. And so like I'm back there, and it's the real who's who of gaming, like the elites, if you will. And I saw Reiner back there, and it's like Reiner, like this is places where you expect to see like Jeff Keighley.
Right.
And Reiner's there, and it's funny because he sees me, I see him, and he gives me this look, and I'm just like, and I wave, and he's like, "How are you back here?" And I'm like,
and
I'm like, "I was invited." And he's like, "Huh."
I was invited. Nice.
Rightfully so. I understand it, because it was something like, this wasn't like the whole staff gets invited to this. This is like, only certain people, how that goes.
Yeah.
And so
exactly.
He was just like, and I'll never forget the look on his face, because he was just like, "I have questions." And I was like, "I also have questions. I'm just as surprised as you are." And we chatted and caught up, and it was fine. But yeah, long story short, people, just throw yourself out there. Sometimes it works out.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe I've been busted too many times trying to sneak into stuff, but like, I don't think I could do it. I could act confident enough.
I don't know. So I don't know if I even acted confidently enough. It was more one of those things where it's just like, I'm just, again, that's all I was saying. I think it was just by God's good grace. Like, I like some of it I didn't even plan. It was just like, well, I'm here now. I mean, again, I got to a point where I wasn't doing that. But my first couple of stints, I was definitely just like, I'm going to walk into a room and see if anyone stops me.
Yeah, that rules. So more people should do that, is what you're saying.
I mean, and when it's appropriate.
When it's appropriate, there you go.
Oh, man. Good times. But yeah, so long story short, E3 is probably going somewhere, but I hope it doesn't, but it probably is.
Yeah, it's such an expensive show to put together, right? So like, Just think of every year they have not had an in-person one. Like, that's money they're not making ultimately.
Yeah. Ultimately, I guess to put a pin in this conversation, what would you think would be more likely if it was to go away? That E3 comes back, or it's just something new takes its place?
I wonder, if it's going to be like an old school company name where it's just like brought back, even though it doesn't have anything to do with the original one. But I think like E3 is so powerful in the minds of people who love games that it would be ridiculous not for it to disappear forever. Someone would bring it back, right? In some form.
Yeah, well, I'm rooting for it because from both our stories, it's, it really is the pinnacle. Once you're there, it's, I guess you never really forget it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the ultimate would be a way for like more people to enjoy that and see what that experience is like. But I think Gamescom has like the best of all possible worlds where they have a couple of days that are devoted for the press, and it's in like a smaller area, and also you can check out the show floor, and then it's just like the gates are open, you bought a ticket, welcome, and it's just like, it reminded me of like what E3 used to be. I don't think I went to a bunch of E3s, but I didn't get to go to like E3 1995 or something like that, right? Where it was just like peak E3. So
yeah, I don't know. Gamescom does the right one. Gamescom actually has the space to do it right.
Oh yeah, that place is enormous.
Yeah, what boggled my mind is the day I happened upon like the kiddie area, like drop off your kids, and it's like Gamescom daycare essentially. I'm like, that is wild. Like just for a show to even have that.
Yeah,
it's like you can literally just bring your family there and just have a good time and not really even be interested in games. It's so like massive.
Not even, or worry about your youngest kids. Just leave them off and have fun with just by yourself. Let someone else watch your kids while you're playing games.
Yeah, man. Amazing. But Cork, I want to thank you for joining me. This has been a grand pleasure. It's always anytime. Yeah, it's always a great time. You were more than hospitable at my time in GI and in the years following. So I always appreciate you. And where can the people keep up with you? I know you're not the biggest social media guy, but if they want to learn more about the fabulous Jeff Cork.
If you wanna read tweets of me reposting the Gumby Screen Caps account, GI Jeff is my Twitter handle. I also tweet very rarely, but I promise you it's always very good when I do.
All right, well, people, you make sure you give them a follow, and always you can follow the show at FC Podcast 23 on Instagram, on Twitter. There is a Patreon at FC Productions. So if you want to do that, shout out to the Patreons. But like, share, subscribe. That's always good with me. And as always, I hope you enjoyed the show. Have a great week and be blessed. Bye.
Bye.